Hello and welcome guys, and welcome to the next session of the MCQs. And yes, your exams are fast approaching. It's high time that you should study hard and you should focus on the MCQs, because the exam is MCQ based, and therefore to assist your preparations we have come up with next session of the MCQs on law and ethics. Okay, so in the last lecture we had completed MCQs till 160 question. So today we are going to start from question number 161. So let's start. According to performance, so as per the performance, on the basis of performance, contract are, what kind of contracts are there? Unilateral contracts, bilateral contracts, multilateral contracts, or both A and B. Sir, there are unilateral contracts and bilateral contracts. There is nothing called multilateral contract. So the answer is D, both A and B. Yes, sir. Question number 162. Voidable contract is defined under which section? So guys, we have been given four options: section 2.1, section 2F, 2H, 2A. Sir, the correct answer is A. 2.1 is the section in which voidable contracts are defined. So the correct answer is A. Perfect. Question number 163. A menu card handed by a waiter in a hotel. So if the waiter hands over the menu card to the customer in a hotel, is that an offer? Is an offer? Four options. 1. True. Yes, that is an offer. B. Partly true. C. False. D. Can't say. So guys, you need to tell me whether a menu card constitutes an offer. Has the waiter offered those things at that price to the customer? Answer is no. Sir, if suppose customer orders one of the thing and that thing is costing him 60 rupees, then the hotel is under an authority to tell the customer that no, we do not have this as of now. We do not have this particular dish, this particular cuisine available. Or the hotel also has the authority to tell the customer that, sir, the prices have increased to 70. This is no longer available for 60. These are the two possibilities which are present. So, waiter offering a menu card to the customer is not an offer. This is a false statement. It's not an offer, because the hotelier can revoke his offer, can when the customer accepts the so-called offer, hotelier can say that, oh no, this vegetable is not available, or this particular cuisine is not available with us as of now. So since this element is present, this is not an offer. Offer will be made when the customer tells the waiter that, oh, I want to eat 1, 2, 3 things. Then the waiter will accept the offer or reject the offer. That would have been the offer. When the customer orders for his particular chosen dishes, that is an offer. And if the waiter accepts that offer, it will be an agreement. Got it, sir? So the correct answer is C, false. Menu card is not an offer which is given by the waiter. 164. Consideration may be in the form of. So according to the act, in what form can consideration be? A. A return promise. B. Forbearance. C. Doing an act. D. All of the above. So what is a return promise? Return promise means that you promise something for me, and in return I promise you to do something, or to pay you something, or not to do something. I promise in return. That is whether that is consideration or not. Second, forbearance. Forbearance means I agree to bear certain thing. In return of your promise, I agree to bear certain thing. So I agree to not park my car in my valid parking. If you promise me that you will pay me certain amount, then I will not park my car in my allotted parking. That is known as forbearance, that I bear something. I bear something which is harsh, something which is not present. I bear it. Can it be called as consideration? Option number 3, doing an act. You do something in return. You do something as a return to the consideration. Would that be considered as a consideration? Answer is yes, sir. all of the above will be considered as a valid consideration. Bearing something is also a form of consideration. Return promise, when you agree to do something in return, return promise is also a consideration, and doing an act is also a consideration. Consideration need not only be monetary, it can be in any form. Okay, sir, got it. If there is no consideration, so a situation where there is no consideration, there will be a void contract. The contract will be void. Voidable contract. C. Illegal contract. D. No contract. So guys, this is a golden principle of the Indian Contract Act. No consideration, no contract. There is no question of being void, voidable or illegal, because that contract is not a contract at all. If it doesn't have the essential ingredient of a consideration, then that contract is not a contract at all. So the answer is D, no contract. So no consideration will lead to no contract. Question number 166. Which of the following is a person of unsound mind? You have to tell us that which out of these people are unsound mind, and you know that a contract with an unsound mind is not a valid contract. So an essential element of a contract is that the parties to the contract should be of sound mind. So now you need to tell which one of the following is a person of unsound mind. Number 1, lunatic. Number 2, idiot. Number 3, drunkard. Number 4, all of the above. Yes, sir, the correct answer is all of the above. Because even if a person is drunkard and you enter into a contract with that person, that contract is not a valid contract, because that person is not in his senses at that point in time. So a drunkard is considered as a person of unsound mind. If you enter into a contract with a lunatic person or an idiot, that will also be considered as a contract with an unsound mind person. So the answer is D. So let's see what is question number 167. A wrong statement made is called misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, mistake. So if you have stated something wrong, if you have disclosed some wrong information, what is it called? Sir, whenever you make a false statement, whenever you make a wrong statement, whenever you make an incorrect statement, that is known as misrepresentation. That you have represented in a fraudulent manner. You have represented in an incorrect manner. You have represented in a absurd manner. That is known as misrepresentation. So the correct answer is A, misrepresentation. So answer is misrepresentation. Yes, sir. Question 168. Agreements tending to create monopolies are void as being. So if there are agreements which are trying to create monopoly. So I'll give you an example. So suppose there are 4 big telecommunication players in the country: Jio, Vodafone, Airtel, and some other. Okay, let's take example of 3: Jio, Vodafone, Airtel. Suppose in India there are only 3 telecommunication players, which are these 3 players. They are competing with each other to give best service to the customers at best possible prices. Suppose if all 3 of them enter into a cartel or enter into an agreement, enter into a joint venture deed in which they want to shake hands with each other, and they want to continue as one big player of telecommunication in India, then guys, naturally, what is the risk? The risk is that the telecommunication rates will zoom up, will really boom up to a very, very high level, and they will escalate to the zenith level, to the pinnacle level. So there can be a situation where 1 minute call will cost you 100 rupees, because there's monopoly. And if there's monopoly, they can charge any price which they want to. And therefore, this agreement which create monopoly, which create a certain kind of one man show. This is also known as one man show or one man army. If monopoly is being created using any agreement, then it is void as being A, immoral, B, fraudulent, C, forbidden by law, D, opposed to public policy. So the correct answer is opposed to public policy. Guys, if a monopoly is created, then who is at a loss? It's the people of the nation. Entire community is at a loss. Entire India is at a loss. So any kind of agreement which leads to a monopoly is opposed to public policy, and if it is opposed to public policy, then it is definitely not a valid contract. So a contract has to be as per the public policy, has to abide by the public policy. Any contract which is against the public policy is void. Yes sir, we remember it. Question number 169. An agreement for marriage brokerage is not opposed to public policy. An agreement for marriage brokerage. So if you are breaking a marriage, not making a marriage, if you are breaking a marriage, so an agreement for marriage brokerage is not opposed to public policy. So guys, any contract which is restraining a marriage, which is asking you not to marry, which is restraining a marriage, is void as per the Contract Act. We have read already in the Contract Act that if you agree that okay, Mr. A will not marry Miss C, Mr. A will not marry Miss C, if this is the kind of contract, then it's void, because any contract which restrains marriage, which stops marriage, which restricts marriage is not permissible. It's a void contract. But over here there's something else. Now please read the statement very very carefully. I've told you the general law. The question is trying to confuse you using the generic principle. The question states that an agreement for marriage brokerage is not opposed to public policy. So if a marriage is being broken up, if a marriage is being broken, then an agreement to break someone's marriage is not opposed to public policy. Answer is false. Sir, this is opposed to public policy. Sir, how come is it opposed to public policy? It is opposed to public policy because if you have an agreement to break someone's marriage, then guys, that public, that person of that, obviously a person is a part of public. So that person is at a loss. He is suffering because of your agreement. Because he is suffering, any person of the public, if any person of the public is suffering, then definitely that particular agreement is void. So yes, any agreement for marriage brokerage is definitely against the public policy, and it is a void agreement. So yes, the answer is false, because the question says that it is not opposed to public policy. We say that yes, it is opposed to public policy because you are damaging someone's relationship, you are damaging someone's life. It is opposed to public policy. So this agreement is void. Okay sir. Question number 170. Which one is contingent contract? So you need to tell which one is contingent contract. Before coming on to the options, let's remember in our minds what is a contingent contract. Oh, contingent contract is a contract which is dependent on a future uncertain event. Yes, absolutely. So if it rains today, then I promise to buy a umbrella from you. The buying of umbrella is dependent on whether it rains today or not, and raining is an uncertain event. This is the kind of contingent contract. Let's see. So which one is a contingent contract? A, D promises to pay E rupees 20,000 if goods lying in E's godown are destroyed by fire. So it is sort of an insurance contract, and yes, insurance contract is one of the major contingent contracts. D promised to pay E if he purchases his goods. So D promises to purchase E if E purchases his goods. Guys, there's no contingency in it, because contingency is an uncertain event whose happening is not dependent on a particular person. Over here in B part, happening of the purchase is dependent on E. So this is not an uncertain event. This is not a contingent contract. So there's a very fine line of difference between uncertain event or a certain event, and you need to understand that thin line of difference. D promises to pay E if he sells his car to him. Again, there is no uncertainty. Either E will sell his car or he won't, which will depend on E's will. Uncertainty means a event which is not dependent on a person's will. It will be dependent on nature. It will be dependent on some unrestricted force. I mean, a force which is not dependent on an individual person. So, C, D promises to pay E if he sells his car to him. D, D promises to pay E to buy his scooter if he is ready to sell. Again, the dependency is on the person. There is no uncertainty. There is no uncertainty at all. The dependency is on the person. If the person is willing to sell, he will sell. Otherwise, he won't sell. So, these three examples are not examples of uncertain events. But yes, fire is an uncertain event. No one will deliberately set his go down on fire or his goods on fire. No one will do that. So, the correct answer is A. Yes, sir. 171. Finder of goods is next best owner to the real amount. So, finder of the good has the right to sell the goods as if he is the owner. This is what we have studied. So, guys, the statement has been twisted a bit and produced before you in a different manner. Finder of the good is next best owner to the real amount. So, the amount which will be realized from selling those goods, the finder of the goods will be the next best possible contender of that amount. Is it true or false? It's absolutely true. Yes, finder of the good has the right to claim the amount on selling of the goods. Yes, it's not his goods, but those goods were found by him, and he has, assuming that he has taken reasonable care to find out a person who is owner of that good. If he's taken that reasonable caution and reasonable care, then the goods belong to him. He will sell them and realize the amount. So the answer is A. Yes, sir, we remember the provisions. A valid tender may be. So tender means when you give something to someone. It may be cash, it may be your goods, or it may be any other consideration which you have promised. Okay. A valid tender must be. When you tender something to someone, so you hand over the goods to the purchaser, to the buyer, that is known as tender. It should be conditional, unconditional, made to a third party, made in foreign currency. The answer is unconditional. Guys, whenever I am selling my goods, I have to sell them unconditionally. Otherwise, sale is not concluded. I assume that that contract is not valid unless the tender, the consideration has been given unconditionally. So, the tender is supposed to be unconditional. A valid tender must be unconditional. Question number 173. To be a valid tender, it must be, number 1, for the whole obligation, for the necessary part of the obligation, for at least 75% of the obligation, or none of the above. Guys, the tender should be for whole obligation. Unless and until the tender is for the whole obligation, the contract is not said to be completed. The contract is not said to be accomplished. So, a tender should always be for the whole obligation, for the entire obligation, a tender should be given. Okay, sir. Next, because of supervening impossibility. So, there is some factor which will lead to impossibility of performance, and you are not able to perform that particular activity which was promised by you in the contract. That is a supervening impossibility. Because of supervening impossibility, the contract becomes, so what is the fate of that particular contract? It becomes illegal, void, voidable, remains valid. Sir, it becomes void. If there is supervening impossibility, any one of the parties is unable to perform the contract completely, then the agreement becomes void. So the answer is B. Which of the following is a ground of supervening impossibility? So which of the following points is a ground for supervening impossibility? That supervening impossibility has happened. Which of the following things can be stated over there? Strike, lockout, rights, none of the above. So let me first remind you what is the supervening impossibility. So circumstances change. If circumstances change, then beyond a point, you are not able to perform a particular contract. For example, you had committed to sell your product to Mr. A, and Mr. A, after gaining this right, held on for 15 days, but after 15 days, guys, those product were damaged. Those product had damaged due to moisture or due to rain or whatever. They were damaged, so circumstances had changed. Once circumstances had changed, then guys, it is impossible to perform that particular contract, so that particular contract becomes void. Now the question is, which of the following is a ground for supervening impossibility? Which of these can happen because of which it is impossible to perform a particular contract? Guys, the answer is none of the above. So strike cannot be a reason for supervening impossibility, because supervening impossibility means a change in circumstance. This is not a change in circumstance. Lockouts and rights again will not lead to supervening impossibility. So the answer is none of the above. These are not the examples of supervening impossibility. Okay, sir. The damages in their nature are, so if there are damages means you are compensated for the loss you have incurred due to the malfunctioning of the contract. So that is known as damages. Damages in their nature are restoring, B, compensatory, C, reimbursing, D, none of the above. Guys, the answer is compensatory. So the damages allow you to compensate for the losses that you have suffered. That is known as damages. So it is compensatory in nature. The correct answer is B, compensatory. Okay, sir. Reimbursing means you are spending, you have expensed off something and you are being reimbursed for that particular amount, which is not damages, guys, for sure. Restoring means I want to restore you back to your original position. That is also not the objective. Objective is to compensate you for the damage, for the loss which you have incurred. You have incurred some loss because of me. I am the culprit. I will reimburse you that particular amount. Objective is to compensate you for the losses. So compensatory is the correct word. Next, a guarantee given for loan taken by a minor. So minor has taken a loan, and I, being a major, I have given a guarantee that if minor does not repay the loan, I will repay the loan. Minor has taken the loan and I have given guarantee on behalf of the minor that if minor doesn't pay the loan, I will repay the loan. Okay, sir. Is illegal, B, void, C, valid, D, voidable. Sir, very much valid. If a minor is taking a loan, that is also a valid thing, because a minor can take a loan. He cannot be sued for damages. He cannot be sued for any non-payment of the loan. But if I take guarantee of that minor, then guys, I can be sued for non-payment of loan by the minor. So yes, it is a very much valid contract. Next, the liability of a surety is, so if someone has taken surety on your behalf, which is almost equivalent to the guarantor, the liability of a surety is A, coextensive with that of the principal debtor, more than the principal debtor, always less than the principal debtor, always decided by the court. The correct answer is, guys, the liability is coextensive with that of the principal debtor. Who is the principal debtor? Principal debtor is the original person for which surety has been taken. He is the original person. So the liability of the surety is coextensive. I mean, whatever liability is there for the principal debtor, same liability will be for the surety as well. So it is coextensive with the principal debtor. So liability of surety is coextensive with that of the principal debtor. Which of the following is not a mercantile agent? So you have to tell which of the following person is not in the capacity of a mercantile agent. A factor, a broker, okay sir, auctioneer, insurance agent. Who is not a commercial agent? Who cannot be held liable for any mistake which is done by the principal? So who is not a mercantile agent? So guys, by law, factor, broker and auctioneer are examples of mercantile agent. Insurance agent is not a mercantile agent. Insurance agent is a person who is having an independent capacity and he operates independently from the insurance company. And sometimes the liability of the the insurance agent is not piggybacked by the insurance company as well. So if the agent tells you something wrong, then the company is not liable, insurance company is not liable to repay you that particular amount if the insurance agent has told you anything wrong. So yes, technically speaking, strictly speaking, as per law, provisions of law, insurance agent is not a mercantile agent. He, although word uses agent, but he is technically speaking not a mercantile agent. Okay, sir. Question number 180. A person appointed by an agent to act for the principal is called. So if a person is appointed by an agent, so agent also appoints someone under him. A person appointed by the agent to act for the principal, not for the agent. Now there's a difference. Now if a principal appoints an agent, then he becomes a person an agent becomes a person who's acting on behalf of the principal. If agent appoints a person who's acting on behalf of the principal, then guys, he's not a sub-agent. Sub-agent is a person who acts on behalf of the agent. Here the question is asking us to tell you what is the name of the person who's acting on behalf of the principal. The person who is the main person, that is not an agent, that is not a sub-agent, it is a substituted agent. What is a sub-agent? Sub-agent is a person who acts on behalf of the agent, not on behalf of the principal. If someone is acting on behalf of the principal, then that person is substituted agent. The agent himself has substituted his powers, delegated his powers, shared his powers to some other person. That person is known as a substituted agent. Okay, sir, we got the difference. Yes, guys, very, very important difference. Let's come on to question number 181. A proposal, when accepted, becomes, oh sir, very simple. Proposal, what is a proposal? Offer and acceptance becomes a proposal. Proposal, when accepted, becomes, sir, a promise. Not a contract, because promise plus legal obligation will become a contract. Not an agreement, but a promise. So, proposal, which means offer, when accepted, becomes a promise. Answer is B. 182. Consensus ad idem, meeting of minds. Meeting of minds. Yes, sir. So, A, meeting of minds. B, meeting of opinions. Equal rights, existing condition. Answer is A, meeting of minds. Yes, sir. Which of the following statement is not correct with reference to an agreement? So, which of the following statements is not correct with reference to an agreement? All contracts are agreements. All agreements are contracts. The parties must intend to create a legal relationship. This is absolutely correct. Agreement give birth to contract. This is absolutely correct. So which one is not correct? All agreements are contracts is a wrong statement, because only those agreements which are piggybacked by a legal relationship, which are piggybacked by a intention to create a legal obligation, becomes a contract. Every agreement is not a contract. So the correct answer is B. Yes, sir. We remember it. 184. If Mr. A offers to Mr. B to sell his car at 5 lakhs and Mr. B agrees to buy it at 4,50,000 and Mr. A refuses it later. Later on, B offers to buy the car for 5 lakh. Then A is bound to sell his car. B can sue A for breach of contract. Both A and B. This will be considered as fresh offer by B. A is not bound to sell the car. Now please understand what is happening. It is a very, very critical question and you have to really understand it well. Okay, sir. Mr. A offers to sell his car to Mr. B at rupees 5 lakhs. Mr. B says, oh no, I want to take it at 4.5 lakhs. Moment B gives a cross offer to A, the agreement or the offer, original offers, becomes void ab initio. It becomes invalid. It is rescinded. The original offer gets rescinded. Now B's offer of 4,50,000 still persists, but unfortunately A refused it. So B's offer also is non-existing now. Then the third offer which B makes of 5 lakh rupees is an offer. unless and until A accepts it. So the correct answer is D. This will be considered as a fresh offer, and it is upon B to accept it, or it is upon A to accept it or not. A is not bound to sell his car. It is upon A to accept it or not. So the correct answer is D. So guys, please understand this arrangement, that if an offer is crossed by another offer, the original offer becomes invalid. Then B gave an offer of 4,50,000 which A refused, so B's offer also goes haywire. Now the third offer is B's offer of 5 lakh rupees. It is a fresh offer. It's A's prerogative whether he wants to accept it or reject it. It's A's prerogative. So the correct answer is D. Okay, sir. Which of the following statement is not correct? You have to tell which one of the following statement is incorrect. Okay, sir. Acceptance can be expressed or implied. Yes, sir. Acceptance can be expressed. Implied acceptance is also permissible. Standard example of a bus stopping at a bus stop is an offer. You boarding the bus becomes an implied acceptance. Okay, sir. Acceptance can be conditional. This is incorrect. No, sir. Acceptance cannot be conditional. Acceptance has to be unconditional, free from any bias, free from any condition. Acceptance cannot be conditional. So this is the incorrect part. Acceptance must be given before the offer lapses. This is also true, guys. Acceptance must be made in the manner prescribed. This is also true. If the offerer has given some mode of prescription for mode of acceptance, that should be followed. Okay, sir. So the correct answer is B. 186. Privity of contract means. Okay, that's a easy one. Privacy of terms of contract. Giving priority to one party. A stranger of contract cannot sue. Interest of all the parties. So the correct answer is C. A stranger to contract cannot sue. The right to sue is only and only vested with the two parties who are party to that particular contract. Yes, sir, we have studied it in detail, in depth in our entire classes. Absolutely correct, guys. So a stranger to contract cannot sue. You cannot be sued by a stranger to a contract. But yes, for consideration, a stranger can to a contract can infuse you towards your consideration. Consideration is possible. Yes, sir. 187. If A makes an offer to B on a particular day, then offer can be revoked by A before B accepts the offer. B. A receives B's acceptance. C. B has posted the letter of acceptance. D. Reasonable period of time. So now please understand the question very, very well. It's a very, very important one. A makes an offer to B on a particular day. A has made an offer to B. Oh, B, listen, you want to buy my car for 5 lakh rupees. When can A revoke the offer? Till when can A revoke the offer? A. B accepts the offer. No, sir. B accepting the offer in his mind is not good enough. B has to act upon his acceptance. Unless and until B acts upon his acceptance, acceptance is not freezed. Incorrect answer. A receives B's acceptance. No, 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 no. A's receipt of acceptance is not a consideration in this particular case. C. B has posted the letter of acceptance. Yes, this is the correct answer. B has posted his letter of acceptance. So B thinking in his mind, oh yes, I'm going to accept A's offer. Not enough. But B acting upon it, good enough. B just writes acceptance and keeps it in his drawer, not good enough. B posts it, couriers it, good enough. So the correct answer is C. A can revoke the offer till the time B has posted his acceptance to A. It is irrespective, it is irrelevant whether A receives the acceptance or not. A can revoke the offer unless and until B has posted that particular letter to A. Okay, sir, got it. 188. If B accepts A's offer by posting a letter of acceptance and afterward B wants to revoke the agreement, the acceptance can be revoked before. So if B accepts A's offer by posting a letter of acceptance, so if B accepts A's offer, by posting a letter of acceptance by posting letter of accept, the situation which we have dealt in question 127, and afterwards now B wants to revoke the acceptance. The acceptance can be revoked before A has posted his confirmation. B, if revocation letter reaches before the letter of acceptance. Okay. Next, C, reasonable period of time. D, none of the above. So very simple, guys. B, this is B, this is A. Okay. B accepts A's offer by posting the letter of acceptance. Afterward, B wants to revoke the agreement. The acceptance can be revoked before the letter of acceptance reaches to the knowledge of A. In this case, the letter of acceptance will reach to the knowledge of A when A will read it. Before A reads it, if B calls up A and tells him that, okay, my acceptance is revoked, then that letter which reaches A is of no consequence. This is the very fine line of difference between revocation of offer and revocation of acceptance. Guys, offer can be revoked till the time the acceptor has done some positive act communicating his acceptance to the offerer. But acceptance can be revoked till the time the acceptance reaches the offerer and offerer is aware about the acceptance. So very thin line of difference between when can offer be revoked and when can acceptance be revoked. You need to understand this pretty well. Got it, sir? Got it. So the correct answer is B, if the revocation reaches before the letter of acceptance. Perfect, sir. 189. Which one of the following is not a kind of consideration? You need to tell which one of the following things is not a consideration. Okay. Executory consideration, executed consideration, past consideration, conditional consideration. So first of all, let me tell you the answer. Conditional consideration is no consideration. Consideration is valid only and only if it is free from any condition, it is unbiased, it is unconditional. If you put some consideration on a condition on consideration, it is not a valid consideration. Now I would like to discuss upon past consideration. Guys, in English law, past consideration means something which has been already received. Based on that, you are entering into a contract now where there is no consideration, because past consideration has been considered in the current contract. In English law, past consideration is also no consideration. But in Indian law, past consideration is a consideration. So past consideration is a valid consideration. Executed, executory is definitely a consideration, but conditional consideration is no consideration. Okay, sir, got it. Which of the following is not a consequence of an illegal contract? So illegal contract, if you enter into an illegal contract with someone, then definitely it has some consequences. You need to tell which one of the consequence is not a consequence of illegal contract. It is avoidable, void, the collateral agreements, none of the above. Okay, so there is a misprint. The collateral agreements are also illegal is one word. Collateral agreements are also illegal, none of the above. Guys, the answer is it is voidable. Illegal contract cannot be voidable. Voidable means which will become valid in near future depending upon will of the party. Even if parties are at will, then also illegal contract cannot become valid. Never ever. So illegal contract are not voidable. Consequences that illegal contracts are voidable is incorrect. That is the reason. So collateral agreements are also illegal. That is true. An illegal agreement is void. That is also true. Question number 191. The substitution of a new contract in place of an old contract, thereby discharging the rights and liabilities of the old contract, is called. So we are substituting a new contract in place of an old contract, and the old contract is actually getting eroded, as actually getting finished. What does that process called? Substitution, novation, discharge, replacement. Now guys, the question has deliberately tried to confuse you. There is nothing called substitution in Indian Contract Act 1872. There is nothing called substitution. The only thing which is there is novation. And this entire process which looks akin to substitution is actually novation. So the correct answer is novation. Okay, sir. So the answer is trying to befool us. Yes, answer is trying to befool you. The damages intended to put the injured party in the same position where he was before the contract are called. So if you are paying damages and those damages are intending to put you at the same position as before, which is definitely compensatory in nature, they want to compensate you for the loss that you have incurred, they are known as unliquidated damages, special damages, exemplary damages, or ordinary damages. Guys, it is known as ordinary damage. It is the normal damage which happens, normal damage which is to be paid to the party who has suffered any loss, who has incurred any loss. So this is known as the ordinary damage. Answer is D. Okay, sir. A contract is always based upon consensus ad idem. Yes. B. Consideration. Yes. C. Intent to create legal obligation. Yes, that also. D. All of the above. Guys, all of the above. A contract should have all the three elements: consensus ad idem, consideration, and willingness to create legal obligation. Contract should have all three elements. Yes, sir. 194. The law provides for certain remedies in case there are no real agreement. Which of the following remedy cannot be claimed by the parties? So if there are no real agreements, which are known as quasi agreements, we have read about quasi agreements in detail. The no real agreements, which are quasi agreements, the law provides for certain remedies. Law has certain remedies for such agreements. Which of the following remedy cannot be claimed by the parties? A. The agreement to be considered as void. The party at fault can be compelled to pay damages. The contract becomes voidable at the option of the parties, or right to sell personal property of other party. Guys, any contract, be it any contract, cannot give you right to sell personal property of the parties. So this right cannot be enforced by any unreal agreement. No, this cannot be enforced. So the correct answer is D. Okay, sir, got it. 195. The damages which are accorded to establish right of decree for breach of contract. So when would you say that there is a breach of contract? Then what is the right which is given to a particular party? A. Nominal damages. B. Liquidated damages, exemplary damages, special damages. Guys, the right is nominal damages. Nominal damages will be paid to you in case you are held for breach of contract. Okay, sir. And 196. Damages awarded for breach of promise of marriage. Okay, so there was a promise for marriage and there is a breach of that promise, or wrongful dishonor of check, is called A. Nominal damage, B. Exemplary damage, C. Liquidated damage, D. Special damage. Guys, the answer is exemplary damage. So yes, this was our session, today's session on the MCQs, and guys, we'll be returning with our new set of MCQs for the subsequent chapters. I hope you are revising these MCQs on yourself as well, because just doing these MCQs will not be sufficient. We have uploaded the set of MCQs, more than 2000 MCQs, in the description box below. Please download those MCQs and do those also. And don't only do them once, just revise them thrice, 4 times, 5 times, because no subjective answers, no detailed explanations to be given. You just have to tick. Ticking can also be done without even understanding the question well. If you remember, by any chance, if you remember that, yes, oh, I had read this particular part and I've ticked it, that will play the game. No harsh strategies to be required. Nothing technical to be required. Okay, sir, we got it. So that's all for this particular session. We'll meet in our subsequent sessions. Till that time, all the very best and happy studying.